I know summer schedules are always challenging with travels, and not to mention virtual with some technical difficulties. So appreciate all your efforts to be online today for our rather short agenda. Tiffany, are we ready?
Yes, sir, we are ready.
All right. I'd like to call the roll.
Yes, sir. Trustee Abelgarth. Okay, might be having some issues. Trustee Eide.
Here.
Trustee Fogg.
Here.
Trustee Kaczynski.
Here.
Trustee Montgomery.
Here.
Trustee Morton.
Here.
Trustee Rhodes.
Here.
Trustee Rivera.
Good morning, I'm present.
Trustee Repsdorf.
Here.
Trustee Semrod.
Here.
Trustee Sulik.
Here.
And Trustee Wynn.
Here. All right. Our meeting
Thank you,
is
sir.
being
You
held.
have a quorum.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Tiffany. So our meeting today is being held virtually, and I'll note for the following for the record: the meeting was duly noticed. All participants are participating virtually through Microsoft Teams. Public access has been provided through a notice web link for viewing access, and the meeting notice directed any public comment on action items to be emailed to Tiffany Reynolds by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, July 31st. Public comment will be read into the record prior to a vote, and the 3-minute time limit will apply. So the vote on an action item will be conducted by a voice vote. So trustees, if you could please identify yourself by name before you make comments, so that one, I can recognize you, and that two, the minutes will accurately reflect the record of today's meeting. It's important that everyone places your computer microphone on mute unless you're speaking, and when you're finished speaking, please immediately return your computer microphone or phone to mute. So again, today we have a short agenda. We have 2 action items on the agenda today, and I'm going to call on Provost Rieger to present those. Provost Rieger.
Good morning, and thank you, Trustee Wynn. And I'm going to try to go through these as quickly as possible. We'll have plenty of time for questions, I believe. First item is the linking industry to nursing education, rather the line proposals that we will send off to the BOG for funding if you approve them today. We're really glad to have great healthcare partners in the community, Lee Health and Naples Comprehensive Healthcare. They have both submitted and put money toward this program, which is a matching program. If every dollar that a healthcare entity supplies to us is matched by the state through this very generous program. So it's in the first part of your packet there, and there are 2 proposals that look very, very similar. Just walk through a little bit of the details. I do see that Brenda Haig is here. She is our director of our School of Nursing, and Sean Felton, I believe, is here. I don't see him right now, but he is the dean of the college, the Merritt College. They can answer more specific questions as well. But if you skip down to the details of the first proposal, which is with Lee Health, it is a $500,000 commitment that they are making to us to fund about 4 different initiatives. Most of the money, in fact, all of the money, if you go to page 4 of that proposal, goes in the form of scholarships to nursing students. The idea is to generate more nursing graduates that can end up working at Lee Health, Naples Comprehensive, and other healthcare institutions. So their $500,000 would be 32 $10,000 scholarships at the bachelor's level and 12 $15,000 scholarships at the master's level. The matching funds that would come from the BOG as a result of that pledge would be used for one, FTE salary support for preparing nursing staff. They talk about a dedicated educational unit, a DEU, not a DEI, but a DEU, embedded in the Lee Health system where the clinical education would occur. That would pay for that. There are micro-credentials associated with that. And then the balance of the funds from the BOG would be used to enhance our simulation capabilities, which are becoming more important in healthcare. So with that as an introduction, I'll just open it to any questions that you might have about this proposal.
Any questions?
All right,
Okay.
well, hearing none, then we could move on to the Naples comprehensive healthcare proposal, which is very, very similar to that. And it starts here. It's a $50,000 commitment on the part of NCH. Again, all of the money from NCH would go to supporting students at $10,000 each to go through the program, obtain their degrees, and hopefully go straight to work. Afterwards, the matching funds from the Board of Governors would go into simulation and artificial intelligence and those types of things that enhance the education. So I'll pause there and see if you have any questions on the NCH part of the line proposal.
Thank you. Any questions?
I was curious why the number for NCH was so much lower than Lee Health.
I will defer to Dr. Haig and Dr. Felton, as I was not part of those negotiations, to answer that. So Brenda or Sean, are you there?
Yeah. Yes, I am. And good morning. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Trustee Sulik, for the question. You know, I think at the time where Lee has been a partner with this for 3 years, last year NCH became a partner with this. There's also some other works in play with NCH related to Dr. Timur, myself, Paul Hiltz, and Jim Mahon had a phenomenal meeting a couple of weeks ago. And we're looking at other ways of partnership related to, one, the new HSS facility with the orthopedics as well. So with a lot of the investments, I don't want to speak financially for NCH, but they have several other investments that are currently being attended to, and this is what they felt was a liable commitment from them at this time. We have a very strong partnership, and I think what you'll see in these two line proposals is that we've really partnered with our not-for-profit safety net hospitals here in Southwest Florida as well. And that's been a very big commitment. We work with the others, but we want to ensure that the care is provided to all healthcare access points here in Southwest Florida.
And did you reach out to Physicians Regional?
Trustee Sulik, we did not at this point. As I mentioned, these funds, I will say over time has been a bit of a challenge at times for the commitment with the scholarships. And we really wanted to focus on the not-for-profit safety net providers of the area.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions. Anyone else? Oh, Trustee Rupsdorf.
Yes, that was an excellent question, I think, Trustee Sulik. And I'm just curious with FSW's program, is there type of agreements like this with them that the BOG also matches?
Good morning, Trustee Rupsdorf. Great question. Each of both the state university system is allocated $6 million in line funding that you have to have a dollar for dollar match. And I'm almost certain that the Florida Board of Education that oversees the state college system also has a pool of funds, but that would be separate from what the Board of Governors oversees.
Okay, I just, I'm like Trustee Sulik, I just hate any opportunity where we can get matching funds. You know, it's just like leaving money on the table. And so I just didn't know if we had a certain maximum amount with the Board of Governors. And I know that they're separate, but FSW, you know, really pushes strongly their nursing program. And it really is all about the scholarships, I think, today for these students. And so.
Sure.
Good morning. This is Brenda Haig. I would just add that many times with the line grants, there's a second round of funding that's offered. It depends on how many proposals they receive in the first consideration. So there may still be opportunities for us to apply for additional funding with partners, but that remains to be seen until the first round is reviewed.
Thank you. I think we benefited from that last year, didn't we? Provost, that we were able to go back and get some more?
I
Great
believe so.
discussion.
Sean, do you recall how we got the money in the first year? Was it in 2 stages or was it all
Yeah.
in one?
Yeah, thanks to Trustee Repsdorf and Dr. Rieger. The first year, Trustee Repsdorf, was when we were able to go back and receive even more funds, and we actually got a larger pro rata on that second time around because we went for a very big ask, and then because of that, we ended up with more funding there. Last year, I believe the BOG had some dollars left on the table, but it is this. I want to be public here as well and really thank our 2 major healthcare systems here in Southwest Florida, because this is a longer term return of investment for these individuals. This year here, Lee Health specifically is starting to see some of the fruits of their labors and the rate of return because they invested in this program 2 years ago, and those students are just now matriculating through, graduating, and staying in the Lee Health system. I will also say most recently, I just worked with Jorge Lopez, our financial aid director, and we've had 18 students receive these scholarships. That's real money and really lowering the cost of debt for these students. And secondly, allowing them to focus on their studies versus having to work a job to pay for college. So, you know, I can see sometimes, Trustee Repsdorf, where these dollars it is a challenge with the institutions because it is a longer rate of return. But these investments, the last 3 years from Lee and the investment from NCH, really shows the commitment to ensure that we're providing the needed providers and nursing students here in Southwest Florida.
Well, absolutely, and I think they should be commended for stepping up, but I'm kind of like Trustee Sullick. I would go after every single one of them and try and get a commitment from them as long as there's matching dollars out there on the table. So that's just me.
No, great discussion. Anyone else?
Chair, when I just want to follow up
Oh,
with one comment is that, again, line funding has been new. We have been doing it 2-3 years now. And the more that the outcomes that our regional partners see, the better and more dollars will come into this. Because as you know, this year we have been recognized several places that #1 nursing program in the state, 100% first-time passing rates. Now our partners see our great work, and this line funding helped our programs and our college to really produce the best outcomes. And I'm really thankful to our team to achieve those outcomes. And with that, more dollars, I am sure, will come through these partnerships.
Absolutely. Excellent. All right. If there's no further discussion, Tiffany, do we have any public comments?
No, sir, we did not.
Okay. So anything else, Provost Rieger, on this action item? Okay.
Well,
So then we have an action item before us. Do we have a motion?
Trustee
moved.
Repsdorf, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll
Second?
second.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, so all those in favor signify by saying yay.
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 Okay, all those opposed? Okay, all right, so we have a unanimous passing of that action item. So we'll move on to our next item on collective bargaining. Provost Rieger again.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll get that proposal moving up to Tallahassee immediately. All right, so on to the CBA. We have concluded for now the full book negotiations that took place over the past several months. I just would point out that it is unprecedented, as far as I know, at FGCU for the university to go to ratification before the union. But that is not unprecedented in the system. That does happen at times. So what we're asking of you today is to agree to this prior to the union agreeing or ratifying their end of it, which I believe will start to take place on Monday of next week. I'm going to go through what the head of HR and what legal counsel has advised is what the major changes are. There's a lot of small changes throughout the document. We're happy to deal with any of those, but I'm going to skip over some of the minor changes in Articles 1, 3, 6, 10, 19, 20, 25, and 27. We can come back to all of that if you wish. And since I'm not part of the negotiating team per se, I'm glad to see that we have Michael Matamore here, who is our lead negotiator. We also, I believe, have Sarah Stensrud. Is she on? Sarah, maybe. Lisa Jones, our interim vice president and general counsel, is here. There's several people here that can provide more detail than myself, and I'll defer to them as the conversation dictates that. All right, so with that, why don't we start at Article 8. Article 8 on page 20. As far as the substantive changes that we're going to see as this is ratified here. If you look at 8.5, Section D, has to do with instructors changing their position or their track to the professorial track. As you know, we have an instructor track and a professor track here. It's almost like a non-tenure track and a tenure track at other universities. There has not been an avenue for an instructor to move to the professor track, although after reading 180 portfolios over 4 years now as provost, I see people in the instructor track that are very well qualified to be assistant professors. And unfortunately, I've also seen them leave the university because they're in an instructor position when they really want to be in an assistant professor position. So I've been asking for this for 2 or 3 years now, and the language there on page 20 is allowing for that change to occur. That by criterion process later to be defined, and that's always the way it is in cases of evaluation and promotion. We will allow for those generally very young, enterprising individuals that are actually doing more than we're asking them to do to move to a position that perhaps they think is more appropriate and to remain with FGCU. So I'll just pause there as I go through, Trustee Wynn, if it's okay, each one of these major changes and see if there's any questions, because it may be confusing to wait to the end on some of these.
I think that's appropriate. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions or discussion?
I had one question.
Please, Trustee Rivera.
I was curious for why the change in protocol ratification prior to the union ratifying.
I'll defer to Michael Matamore, the chief negotiator.
Mr. Matamore?
Thank you. Logistically, it makes sense for us to do this first because in order to get a robust participation, the UFF needs the faculty back on campus. And we did not want to delay the implementation of this contract into the next board meeting. So we thought it would be appropriate to go first, which is not unusual. Actually, the statute sort of reads in a way that would suggest that the employer does go first. But I also think this, if I can take a second, I think it's appropriate for the Board of Trustees to go first in this setting because this contract that we have put on the table and the UFF has agreed to, and we're going through this morning, this is the deal. This is not something we're giving to them to say, test this out. We're not giving this to them to say, run this up the flagpole and see if people like it and come back and maybe we'll negotiate something else. This is our best deal. And so we're sending a strong message today that we're going to ratify. And this is our contract.
All right. I'm satisfied with that. I certainly would not want the union to come back with a different proposal. That I would be very disappointed in that.
Good discussion. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Heidi. Okay.
Yes, Trustee. Heidi.
Yeah. I think that is exactly the right question to be asking, the one he just asked. And I understood the negotiator's answer, but the one part of it that I think is still open-ended is that there's nothing binding on the union to not make a counter proposal after we ratify. Is that correct? They could do that. We just wish they wouldn't.
Well, our intent is that if they were to not follow through and ratify this agreement, which I think they will, because this is an excellent contract.
No, me too. I'm talking about just the order of play here.
Yeah. Well, if they come back and ask for more, our position is going to be, this is our contract. There will be no more. And then
Right, okay.
if we have to, then we'll go forward and impose this contract, which this Board of Trustees is capable of doing legally.
Right.
Thank you for
But
making that.
Yeah, I mean, that clarifies it. There's nothing, though, I think it's important that the trustees understand this. The union isn't bound to ratify just because we ratified. We just expect and hope that they will. They still are free to do whatever they want, right?
Procedurally, they can do that, correct. You're correct.
Yeah.
That's one point.
Thank you.
One more clarifying question, Mr. Madmore. My understanding of Florida law and my understanding of your answer is that the board, as the employer, has the ability to impose the terms, notwithstanding the fact that the union doesn't ratify. Is that correct?
That is correct. If the union does not ratify, then we're going to find ourselves at impasse, which would empower the Board of Trustees to be able to impose this contract.
Great discussion. Thank you. Anyone else? Trustee Applegard.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
I've been on the meeting since the beginning, and I appreciate the discussion. You all couldn't see or hear me, but I could, and I would like my note recorded in favor of the prior item rather than not being here. I do have a couple of questions specifically on the contract. Some of the changes there. One, there is a discussion about time off for union activities and full-time jobs, and leave and so on. I'm just curious, what's the total cost of those items, and in terms of our budget and in terms of overall staff costs? I'm quite conscious of both the need to attract and retain good faculty. I'm also conscious because we really do represent both the taxpayers and the university of potential costs, and some items like this can sort of sneak in without being costed out. So do you have a sense of what those particular proposals are costing?
Thanks, Trustee Applegarth. I think you were referring to the part about the leave that we grant for the administrators of the union to negotiate and to hear grievances. Am I correct in that assumption?
I believe there's a reference to 4 staff for. I'm just looking for the language. It's hard to talk and both.
Yeah.
And then it also leaves of absence for other or extended time off for others, and so it's a whole number of sections devoted to time spent on union activities, and which are granted in the contract. I'm just curious about the cost of those, and would wonder if, for example, payroll deductions do come back in, would some of those costs, which are really activities, be shifted on to the union members themselves rather than the university?
Well, let me try to answer the first part of the question. I believe, and I'm not on the right page here, I believe there are 5 units of course releases that are granted. And Michael, just or anyone else more familiar with the negotiations, please chime in if I'm wrong about that. I'm still on page 20. But what we would normally do for a course release for a faculty member is we would hire an adjunct at the cost of about $3,600. Some colleges pay more, between $3,600 and $5,000. And so you can imagine that we're talking about an expense, a direct expense of somewhere between, say, $18,000 and $25,000 to allow for the course releases, so that those union leaders can be released from teaching to do hearing grievances and appeals and negotiating. Those are the direct costs. The sort of implicit costs are some of the indirect costs, like the time of Sean Felton, for example, who sits on the negotiating team, and others that sit on the negotiating. That's a little bit harder to add up. We did have a request from the Board of Governors, I think it was last year or the year before, to add up the costs of that. And I can supply you that document. I don't have it out and ready to answer your question this morning, unfortunately, but I can supply that document to you to give you a better sense of what the all-in cost of negotiating a contract might be.
Well, I think that would be helpful, both that and we just recommended for future changes, we do have the costs identified as proposed. There's a new section here on parental leave that support the concept of parental leave quite a bit. How much does it cost? What in terms of our overall budget, is this probably is a good use of our resources, but for changes that clearly have an economic impact in terms of budget at a time when we're trying to limit the tuition increases and keep costs down, it would be helpful to know which new proposals and new ideas cost, how much they cost. And so that the board can really contemplate that and get the information prior to a discussion like this.
All right, and then I believe is Ms. Stensrud present, or David, can you estimate the cost, specifically since parental leave was referenced, the cost of bumping up the benefit for parental leave in the in-unit faculty to the staff level, what that annual cost might be?
David, do you want to answer that, or would you like me to?
Why don't you start? I have a couple thoughts for that and the release time as well. Okay, you want to go first, or want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So let me talk a little bit about the release time. And I know we kind of moved from that, but I want to make sure that I cover this. So Dr. Rieger's right. We did a document for the Board of Governors a couple of years ago. The numbers might be a little bit dated, but they will give you a sense. Oh, my camera just went out. They will give you a sense of what those costs are. It is a moving target because you have that combination of, depending upon the course that you are backfilling and the sunk costs of the salary of the faculty member providing relief. So it will tend to shift. So I won't have a hard number for you in any given year, but we can set up a parameter to give a kind of estimate for that. In terms of and I'm going to defer to Sarah on this one very shortly. In terms of the FMLA, the parental leave, we're just starting it, so we don't know what our data is going to indicate, like, exactly how many people we expect to be out. But it will be very similar to the release time in that, obviously, we already have the faculty member whose salary we will continue to pay while they're on parental, and then we will have to backfill that. So I can work with Sarah and her team to see if we have any data, so we can come up with a model similar to the release. Sarah, do you have anything you want to add to that, or you can?
No, I think you covered it.
All right.
Great. Excellent question. Any other discussion? All right, Provost Rieger, could you please continue on this item?
Okay, so going back a little bit on page 20, that had to do with the instructor to professor change. And if there's no more questions on that, we'll move on to Article 14. That's all right. That deals with promotion. It would be page 41 of the proposed CBA. If you're following on your packet there, not page 41 of the packet, but page 41 of the proposed CBA. And get there myself. Okay. This is, again, something I had been looking for a number of years, promote when ready type of a process. We have a 4-year minimum in which faculty must remain in rank before they're eligible for promotion. What I notice, again, from reading 180 of these things, that some faculty are ready in less than 4 years. And why should we hold them back if they are meeting the criteria? So finally, we see language here this year that allows enterprising young faculty that are ahead of the curve to petition their peer review committee, that's just part of the promotion process, to be able to go for promotion early, so to speak, in 3 years rather than 4, and go ahead and move through that process in a more timely fashion. And so that is what the language on page 41 tries to encapsulate. And I'll pause for any questions or comments there.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Heidi, is there, Mark, is there a system-wide standard for this when you look at the whole University of Florida system?
Not really. I mean, most universities nationwide, in fact, use a 5-year timeline for promotion and tenure at each rank. Several institutions allow for going up early or, promote when ready. And that's what I had been used to in my past. I know at the University of Florida, we allowed for that. We allowed for people to be promoted in 4 years when their timeline was 5. And so it's fairly common to have some wiggle room, let's say, for, again, enterprising faculty. These are very few individuals. It's a handful of individuals out of the 50 or so that might apply for promotion in a given year. So it's not, the majority of them. But no, it's typically something that's afforded to people to allow them to progress through the ranks more quickly.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not, I'm totally for promote when ready. I mean, completely for that. My question was more is the 4-year standard pretty typical, or are we restrictive? Are we easy? It sounds like we're a little bit on the easy side on that at 4.
We actually, I think it goes back to the founding documents. I remember reading Roy McTarnigan's book about the founding of FGCU. Because it was envisioned as a no tenure university, I think one of the things that they said is that let's allow people to go for promotion in 4 years rather than 5, which is the de facto standard around higher education. And so I'm actually pushing the limit a little bit more. I didn't ask for 3, I asked for promote when ready, but the compromise is what has been presented here in section B on page 41.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm back with you. I'm not sorry. I'm back with you. Sorry for the interruption.
Trustee Applegarth. Thank you.
I switched to my mobile because for some reason my laptop and Microsoft Teams are not friends with each other. I didn't hear the end of the costs.
Sorry, Trustee Applegarth, can you repeat that last part?
And
Sorry, I think your video froze.
Yes, it did. All right. Well, you didn't miss much. But it's helpful. I'm surprised you didn't have it costed out before you agreed to it in the negotiations. And therefore, I would encourage you to think about the cost implications of these proposals before agreeing to them. And another point, there is in the performance evaluation section, there's a minor change in language that says the purpose of the evaluation is to move from assisting the faculty member or staff member to make a better decision about their future to helping them qualify for promotion. And that change puts a whole different standard on the university if somebody doesn't qualify for the promotion. Does that expose the university to liability if they don't qualify? It's one thing to have an obligation to help them make a decision themselves. It's another to say, help them qualify. And so is there a shift of legal implication that might have liability for us?
Okay, I certainly have a comment as provost, but I think since you brought up the legal implications, we'll defer to general counsel. Lisa, can you provide an estimate of what you think the impact might be from a litigation standpoint?
I did not see any legal implication there as far as liability. And I would call on Mike as our chief negotiator to chime in with his thoughts here.
Thank you, trustee, and thank you, Lisa. Yet in this collective bargaining agreement, there is language that protects the university from any kind of litigation or risk arising out of a decision to promote or grant, a decision to promote is designated as an exercise of academic discretion that's not subject to legal challenge.
And what was the purpose of the change then? Why was this language changed? What was the objective of the union doing this?
Well, it actually is just a clarification, because the old language said the evaluation would provide assistance and counseling to help them assess their progress toward promotion, where what we're really doing is helping them grow, become more effective, and qualify for promotion, right? It's not that we're giving them information so that they do their own personal assessment. We do the assessment. So it's really just kind of a better way of saying what we're doing.
I'll defer to that. I do read it another way, which is what my concern is. So anyway, well, thank you for that. But let me ask also, what overall, from your perspective, and I realize this is a public meeting and not an executive session, were the key issues of contention?
Yeah, if I can interject here, I will cover the major issues that I think are fundamentally different from the previous contract. Since I wasn't part of the negotiations, again, I'll defer to Mike on issues of contention that might not be in the agreement here, but I can certainly cover the things that have been suggested to change.
Well, I think this year, the challenge in these negotiations primarily was the fact that there have been some changes in Florida statutes having to do with how unions operate. And so we've had to implement those new provisions of law. And we did that. This contract does that. In the areas of arbitration and in the areas of dues deduction, even how someone goes about using the release time we talked about, narrowing what release time can be used for. So those things were challenges. Then I think it's been how we go about providing compensation and how we address compensation to the different concerns that we have, compression, inversion, merit, the cost of living. So we had several discussions about that. I think also there was an initiative to have certain classes of employees who are not traditional faculty come under some of the provisions of the contract that covered traditional faculty and not an administrative position. And we were able to work that out so that those positions continue in their current status.
Thank you. And thank you, by the way, for your efforts on this. As I would say, my biggest concern is the cost and the implications of agreeing to something without knowing what they cost or letting us know.
And to your point, Trustee Applegarth, I have made a note so that in the future we'll have those broken out in advance for your review. And I think there's some commitments here too, although it's after the decision, to at least provide some cost information so that you'll have that going for this recent decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, Provost Rieger, please continue.
Okay, so leaving promotion behind at this point and going to Article 17 on leave. And this is something that we were talking about. This would be pages 56 and 57. Basically, this is allowing for the faculty, the union, in-unit faculty, to have the paid parental leave that the staff currently enjoys. And I'll defer to Ms. Stensrud to give any more detail on how that paid parental leave works, if there's any deviations from that. But there's quite a bit of language on those 2 pages that describes that privilege that's now being granted.
Mark, I'm happy to answer questions. This is, like I said, a benefit that the staff we put in place for the staff about a year ago when the governor of the state of Florida implemented such policies for state of Florida employees. And we looked at the budget at that point in time. But if there are other questions, I'm happy to answer them along with David.
I have a question. How do these benefits compare with, you've answered the question about the state if they apply, but how do they compare with the private sector? Is it more generous, less generous, against the standard of somebody who was working in the private sector? Would they be envious of this or think it is being cheap?
Yes, this paid parental leave, when you apply it or when you compare it to the private sector, of course, private sector is all over the board. But in the last 5 years or so, private sectors have embraced more leave for employees, as you know, with the race for talent and having less talent in the market. And so a lot of the private sector has gone to much more robust paid parental leaves than we implemented here in the state of Florida. One of the reasons the governor did do it is because we were a little behind. And so this benefit, I think you would find with big private sectors who want to compete for talent, we would be on the low end. And then smaller employees may not have as robust as benefit.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Any additional questions in this section? All right. Provost Krieger, please continue.
All right, on to Article 23, salaries, and there's several points to make here. You recall that the Board of Trustees had an executive session to discuss some of the different options that we could possibly lay out for salary adjustments. And so these are the final landing points for the agreement before you. So those details start on page 96 of the collective bargaining agreement. So as I scroll to those points, all right. The first thing is in section A of that is a 4% base salary increase for eligible faculty, and it names exclusions for people who would not be ineligible for that. You have to have you can't be terminated or have a non-reappointment or unsatisfactory evaluation. But other than that, all faculty across the board will receive a 4% increase to their base salary on August 7th of this year. Pause for any comment. Okay, seeing none, then
I don't want to dominate the conversation. This is really a question for the president. Do you feel this package gives you sufficient means and tools to reward highly performing individuals, so to make sure we can attract and retain them, and to discourage those that maybe we don't want to encourage?
Trustee Applegard, we put our budgets and financial position in perspective when we made the decision for our incredible talent on our campus. So this package, you see that truly recognizing their hard work and what our budget is capable of with the financial health of the institution. So we have spent weeks over to really put those numbers together, and I think we are this is the best we can do with the resources that we have.
I guess my question goes more to the mix. We have limited resources. Would you tilt them more toward rewarding performance, or it's just, I'll leave the words to you. Or would you? Is this the best you can do under the circumstances, or would you see more of like to see more of a tilt toward rewarding performance.
Well, as you know, we are in an inflationary environment. So in an inflationary environment, of course, we know that the cost of living increase for everyone, for our institution and for our employees. And what you see over here is really catching up with the cost of living in our region, and continue to do a good job catching up with those numbers. There are several things here that you can see. We put some funding for conversion and inversion, and we put some money for, again, rewarding above and beyond well-performing faculty with the merit pay that is introduced. It was introduced, the concept, last year, and this year that is part of the packet. So we are doing both. You know, we are recognizing high-performing individuals, but at the same time, catching up with the cost of living in our region.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, Provost Rieger, please continue.
All right, so 4% across the board, and then in addition to that, Part B is an amount of 400,000, and you can see the strike through of 300,000 from last year. So to your point, Trustee Applegarth, about the cost of the institution, we are offering to spend another $100,000 this year to address compression and inversion. We set aside 300,000 last year, so that language deals with that. Also, there's a change in the process. The process defined last year will not be used, and a process defined by the university will be used in this coming year.
Okay, no discussion, please continue.
Okay. All right, so on Part C there, this is a non-recurring pool of funds that will be added to the unit base. And this is a merit pay. And so the language here lays out how you would qualify for the merit pay. And again, there was a system devised this past year that will be likely changed for the coming year, but a 1% merit pool of non-recurring funds, that's important, will be offered for the current fiscal year, AY25.
Okay, no questions, please continue.
All right, further down on page 97, this is a one-time non-recurring payment. We had talked at the BOT executive session about 1% initially. That was changed to a lump sum of $1,700 non-recurring. That came out through the negotiations. And so a one-time non-recurring payment instead of 1% of your base salary, just a flat $1,700 would be applied to all faculty in the bargaining unit.
Okay. Please continue.
All right. Moving on to Section E, Excellence Awards. This is a slight amendment. In the past, faculty winning the top teaching award, top research award at the university had $1,000 added to their base salary. Now, another category of awardee, let's say, is going to receive that. And so this would be the recipients of the Team Service Award. There's a number of awards that we give to faculty every year. The Team Service Award will also receive this benefit of a $1,000 increase to their base salary if they win the award.
Great. No discussion, we'll continue.
All right, and then Section G is brand new on the bottom of page 97, and this is terminal rank review process. This is another interesting thing. I'm really glad as a provost to see this coming along. This is for people who have achieved their terminal rank. So professor, if you're in the professor track, instructor 3, if you're the instructor track, and so on and so forth. And what this allows is for those individuals to be evaluated periodically and receive a pay bump for excellence in service. The idea there being is that they have no further promotions to look forward to once they're at that full rank. And so what they can look forward to and what may keep them more motivated to continue to perform at a high level would be some kind of 5 or 7 year periodic pay bump that people could apply for. And again, going back to my UF days, we did this at UF. It was called the Special Pay Plan for Professors. And we would receive applications and award the highest meritorious faculty I think it was a 9% raise at that time. The program was later discontinued. But anyway, this allows for people to achieve through merit a increase in their base pay on a periodic basis.
Trustee Rhodes.
Yeah, just quick question on in terms of process that's proposed there. This is a similar team of 3 people from the bargaining unit and 3 people from administration to come up with what the process would look like. I would also encourage us to utilize the faculty senate teams that we currently have. I know that was a question that came about with things like the merit pay, because eventually we have some language in here that says that the Senate will determine these processes, and then we have others where we're creating a new team. So I would just encourage utilizing those processes that we currently have in place as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, please proceed, Provost Reeker.
Okay, the last thing is on page 98 to do with salaries, Article 23. And again, this is another important one that we've been looking at for 2 years. And so it says extra service pay from grants and contracts. And we're growing research. We're doing a good job here at this university. Faculty are responding well. They currently don't have a way to embellish their pay from a grant or contract during the academic year. We have to have language, according to the federal government, language in the CBA that permits that. All right. And so a simple sentence, in this case, then paves the way or opens the door to this. It's sort of one of the necessary but not sufficient parts of this. So a faculty member can pay themselves more than their institutional base pay during the year if the sponsor allows it. That's the other thing. There are some federal sponsors that just don't allow this to happen. And so if that's the grant that you got, unfortunately, you're out of luck in that case. But there are some sponsors that allow it. So this language paves the way for those. Very few faculty will probably qualify for this, but we want those hard chargers that are willing to write those grants and receive them and work hard for that extra pay to be able to receive it.
Great. Any discussion? All right. Thank you. Please continue.
Okay, so that concludes the Article 23 on salaries, the main points there. I'll skip on to Article 29, and then I'm going to just open it up for questions there on any other minor things. So Article 29, the last major thing, page 111 of the agreement. Basically, what this says is that we're concluding the negotiations for now, but we're going to open them back up on October 1st, and specifically agreeing to open 8, 9, 12, and 30 as far as articles that we need to go back and readdress. And so that'll take place again sometime before or sometime following October 1st, and then other articles may be selected at that point. But it's just an agreement to continue negotiations on things that couldn't be resolved in this go round. And Michael, would you like to add anything about Article 29 from your perspective?
Right. Well, this is a 3-year contract, and we have issues that are going to continue to evolve over these 3 years. So instead of getting locked in, it allows us an opportunity to go back to the table and address some things that we need to address in the second year of the contract and in the third year of the contract.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll open it up for additional questions or discussion.
Michael, I have a comment to make.
Yes, Trustee Sulik.
I believe that we're being incredibly generous in our provision of these raises, et cetera, kind of across, particularly across the board, 4% increase in the $1,700 one-time payment, which I believe one-time payments ultimately become permanent, because if they're not followed up with, they result in some issues. And so I would have preferred to see something that had more an incentive component to it, particularly in light of where we stand with respect to our incentive performance funding. So I'm a little upset about that, and not upset enough not to vote for this, but just I would like to have seen the incentive component that would have created a situation where the faculty would have had to perform a little more on the incentive side, which I think things like taking attendance and that type of stuff is needed here. And I'm not sure that we have anything built into this plan that compensates them for not doing that kind of stuff. So just a comment, open it up to whoever else would like to comment on that.
Dr. Tamor, would you like to comment on that?
Trustee Sulik, that's a very good comment, and I appreciate that. But one thing I have to say, we really have hardworking faculty, and over the years, faculty pay has been behind the scale. And these 2 years, my goal was to really meet with the cost of living in Southwest Florida and make sure that they take care of themselves and their families. And we build a culture that we really focus on our students. And I know that our faculty are stepping up wherever we need their assistance to do anything for student success. It's a new era. We are working across the campus in so many different initiatives. They're involved, and we're doing continuous improvement everywhere. And with this package, they see our commitment and also recognition of their hard work. And they at the same time know that we have a lot of work to do. With this, I am sure they're much more motivated. They are motivated, but they know that we can do better, and we'll be working harder and get better results for our performance-based funding metrics. Your comments are noted, and we are working on several things inside of the classroom and outside of the classroom, how to support student success, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you. Trustee Rhodes.
Yeah, I just want to echo what the president just said. A lot of her points were what I was going to say. I think we are giving a generous package here when we take everything into account in terms of across the board raises, but also parental leave and some of the other merit pay and things like that we're including here. We are catching up still, but we are also shifting the culture a little bit, and that takes some time to do. And we have to also remember the type of university that we are. As a non-tenured institution, we need to be competitive to recruit the best faculty and retain the best faculty. So we need to be conscious of balancing both those benefits that we're giving while also incentivizing those merit pay. And I think we're doing that. So I think this is a great package, and I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it.
Hey, Michael, Ted Morton.
Yes, Trustee Morton, please.
I'd like to build on Trustee Sulik. Something that I have mentioned in previous board meetings. I believe the pay for performance metrics should be, as we change the culture, should be built into this type of a contract as well. I think that we hold the university accountable to those metrics. I believe that the employees and the faculty should be held accountable to that same standard that we hold the university to. So as we move forward, as previously mentioned, we're changing the culture. I think the culture of accountability would be something that I would look forward to in the future. My 2 cents. Thank you.
No, thank you. Any additional comments or discussion?
Yeah, Heidi here.
Trustee Heidi.
Yeah, the the negotiator kind of left me hanging there when he said there's, clearly some things that are going to have to be renegotiated, and it's sort of an open-ended process over the 3-year life of the agreement. And then I thought he was going to say what those things are that he wanted to draw our attention to that might require further negotiation, but he didn't. So I was wondering if he would like to do that.
Yeah. Mr. Matamore.
Yeah, yes, certainly. We are only committing to wages for the first year of the 3-year contract. So that's going to have to come back up and be next year's compensation is going to be subject to negotiations. And then the 3rd year of the contract, any compensation will be subject to negotiations. And the reason why we have to reopen and visit it at that time is because we really do not know what our funding will be for the 2nd year of this contract or the 3rd year of the contract. We have to be mindful of what we're going to receive, but also our own performance. We can take that into consideration in the 2nd and 3rd year, and let that inform us as to what is an appropriate salaries. Some of the other issues have to do with a class of employees that are in the A&P workforce. The way that I understood went on the table is that the United Faculty of Florida asked that the people have certain processes afforded them that are not in keeping with the A&P policies that we have in place. We resisted that, but we also recognize that if they want to bring that back to the table in the future, we're always going to listen to them and try to work something out.
Well, thanks. So we know what to look forward to. And I think also that, sometimes in these big transactions, like a new 3-year CBA and all that we forget that it's really it more closely resembles a series of 3 1-year contracts than it does a 3-year contract.
That's right.
And I think if it's framed that way, it's easier for me as a trustee to understand, okay, just because you've signed off on this and voted yes for it, Dick, is this going to come back and we're going to be right back at the table on this next year? And you correctly point out, there's some things that this doesn't really settle except for now. I'm still going to vote yes, but that helps. Thanks.
Fair point. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, with a lot of the other
Trustee Applegarth.
Trustee ID and Trustee Stewart and Rhodes. I think the thrust of all of these was to indicate that a desire that the president feels she has the tools to reward those folks that are on board and helping her change the culture, and to differentiate between them and some of those who may be more resistant. And so I would take these questions and comments as really more an endorsement of the efforts of what you're trying to do and an effort to make sure you have the tools to do it. And I was satisfied that you were also concerned about the overall cost of living effect on everybody, but in shifting the balance in a way that assists you, as I think was thrust in many of these comments, including mine.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, if now's an appropriate time, I'd like to move to ratify the agreement.
Wonderful, thank you so much. If there's no further discussion, we have an action item before us. Is there a motion to approve?
think I just made the motion, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. A second.
I'll second.
I second.
All right. So is any further discussion, any public comment, Tiffany?
No, sir, there's not.
All right. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All, any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? No, that's unanimous. All right, so we have a unanimous vote on this motion. Is there any old business that we need to discuss before we move for adjournment? I'm gonna make just one comment. If you have not sent in your evaluation for President Timor, please send that in. If you did not receive the original email from Tiffany, please get with her and she will get that resent to you. That's the only other item I have. Is there any new business before to come before the board? All right. So I want to just pause before we adjourn and one, thank the board for the executive session where we got great input, frankly, for our negotiators to move forward and reaching the deal that we had. And I want to thank all those that were involved with the bargaining team. That's Michael Matamore, Tony Behringer, Tanya Benford, Megan Clips, Sean Felton, Christina Jordan, Sarah Stensrud, and Eric Tack for all of your hard work and help in getting this action item before us here. Thank you. So our next regular meeting is on September 10th, 2024 in the Cohen Student Union Ballroom at 8:30 a.m. Look forward to seeing you all then. If there's no further business, we are officially adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
all. Bye-bye.